My tenant was 2 months behind on rent, and in spite of that, he looked me in the eye and asked if I could pay him $700. Let me back up and tell you the story of my first deal. Before we built the portfolio, before there were 75 units or a construction company or any of that, when we got started, the first deal was a house hack. There actually wasn't even a we, it was just me riding around in a car with my realtor because I didn't even have a car. The plan was simple. I wanted to find a deal where I could live in the house and rent out the other rooms. Enough money should be coming in from that that it could cover my mortgage. I wanted to get in real estate and use that rent as my leverage to do so. It's what they call house hacking now. Just to show you how unsophisticated I was at the time, my research on what the rents would be basically was just going around the office where I worked, and there were a bunch of other 20 somethings there, and asking them, what would you pay to rent a room in this location, and showing it to them on Google Maps. We settled on around $700. And with no more research than that, I charged out to find a house, assuming that I could rent it for that amount. So I go out with the realtor and see house after house. I had total spreadsheet goggles. Everything was just number of rooms and the likely mortgage payment, and using $700 per room as a baseline. So eventually, we come across a house that looks like it meets the criteria: 5 bedrooms, three full bathrooms, located relatively closely to DC. It was $340,000 with a down payment of $11,900. This was literally my last money in my bank account. I was so excited about the deal that I told the realtor that day that I wanted it. I was going to pay asking price and to go ahead and write up an offer. I got a seller credit to cover some closing costs, but that was it. That was all I needed to know that I wanted the house. I did a home inspection, but it said that everything was fine. And frankly, I wasn't paying much attention anyway. So we closed on the house. My first tenant was actually referred to me as a classmate of my brother, who was an undergrad at the time. That tenant turned out to be awesome, and he stayed there for several years and paid on time. He's a pretty cool guy in general. But outside of that, basically everything else went downhill. What started as a great thing to have a tenant moving in on day one when I closed the house turned out to be a terrible thing because my furniture delivery was delayed. So remember, since this is house hacking, I'm responsible to provide all the rooms and the beds and the sofas and everything. So that first night, I literally put my mattress in the tenant's room on the floor for him to sleep on, and I slept on a blanket on the tile floor in the basement. Eventually, I got the furniture delivered and I proceeded to try to rent the other rooms. I dodged a few mistakes with potential bad tenants, including one lady that was suing 2 out of 3 of her last landlords. But ultimately, I was in such a hurry to get the rooms rented and to get to that cash flow that I didn't do much screening at all. I just moved people in and figured I'd figure it all out later. So I rented the rooms out fast, and then one tenant almost immediately became a problem. He wasn't paying, and then when he did, he had this thing he would do where he would put an envelope under my room door with cash while I wasn't there, and then let me know he'd put the rent under the door. Then when I'd open the envelope, it was a certain X amount of dollars. Let's say it was $500. Then later, when I would let him know that I'd received the money, he would say that there was 600 or 7 or even $800 in the envelope. And because I opened the envelope when he wasn't there, there's no concrete way to nail down how much money had been in the envelope. So this went on and back and forth. And at some points, he wasn't even paying at all. One day, I distinctly remember I came home from about a 10-hour day trying to do software sales and driving around and trying to learn this difficult job. And this tenant is sitting on the sofa, my sofa, watching the television, my television, using the Netflix that I'm paying for, and he's just sitting there hanging out in the house rather than looking for a job or doing anything else to try to pay the rent that he's not paying. Imagine going through that situation. And you just have to calmly go downstairs to your room because it's his house. He's allowed to use the television. That's what's been agreed. The worst part of the whole situation was when winter came. It turned out that the AC and the heat didn't work properly. Great home inspection we had there, and we had electrical problems as well. The problem tenant situation kept expanding and expanding, and the funniest moment of all came one day when he'd made a partial payment, and he was about $200 to $300 short of the rent for the month. As a courtesy, I suggested that we take $200 to $300 out of a security deposit to cover the shortfall, so he was paid up on the money for the month. In hindsight, that was a terrible idea just for a variety of reasons. But at the time, I actually wanted to take that money out of the deposit so that I could have that as additional money for paying bills that month. I thought it would help him get caught up. I had a lot of ideas about why that would be a good idea. But The tenant, of course, agreed, and then he shocked me by looking me directly in the eye and asking if I could pay him out the rest of the security deposit money as well. And then he would just count it that he didn't owe me any more security deposit money once he moved out later down the road. That's right. He wanted me to actually pay him back his security deposit while he was living there in a month where he had not paid the full rent and even knowing that he was behind a substantial amount of money. I was shocked. A lot of the story is comedic, but it actually was very hard living there in this situation. And it really showed me that my people assessment skills weren't as good as I thought they were. And it turned out I didn't have any property management skills. And I made mistake after mistake after mistake. But I learned how to screen tenants. I learned how to avoid those problems. And I learned how to set proper expectations in the future. In spite of all those problems, I did end up living in the house for free, plus or minus some gray hairs. And the effect of that was that the savings this created became the foundation for the next 2 or 4 deals because it allowed me to save more money per month. And that money allowed me to keep progressing to where we are today. So, for all of that stress and pain, think about what I got for it. Not only did the house itself allow me to save money to buy other properties, but the house itself turned out to be an amazing deal over time as well. Today, that house is worth about $540,000, and the debt has been paid down by the tenants to about $278,000. We also did a refinance at one point into a conventional loan. We were able to pull out about $8,000 when we did that. It wasn't really a cash out refi, it was a sort of a small trick with the escrow account. But the point is, we got $8,000 out, and now the property has been rented for 4 or 5 years straight for $3,000 a month. With the mortgage now is down to about $2,000 per month because we also got PMI removed from it. So now it's a property which started out sleeping on a tile floor, wondering how I could have made so many mistakes, all the way up to a property where we've picked up a couple $100,000 in appreciation, plus a bunch of principal pay down from the tenants, and it actively cash flows every month. The main takeaway here is that there's lots of mistakes that you're going to make with your early rentals, and you're not always going to feel like you're moving forward. When you're sleeping on a tile floor, it may not feel like it's a step in the process to having a large portfolio. But if you embrace the learning and try to fix the mistakes and get better over time, then you'll get into a better position long term. And those tiles that you're sleeping on can become stepping stones to where you're trying to get.